Good evening. As we speak, there are a number of protests that are raging across the country. Anti-Telangana protests, doctors' protests against mandatory rural postings, protests against Pakistan for LOC violations, protests against the Supreme Court verdict on quota and faculty hearing, and also some Muslim clerics protesting against Facebook. The list is endless. It made author Salman Rushdie declare it an age of offendedness, where people are defined by hate because of the rise of what he says is because of communal politics. Is he right? Our audience is divided. On my right are those who say yes, Salman Rushdie is right. There is growing intolerance, and you see signs of that in Parliament as well, on the road. While the other side, sitting on my left, are the other people who believe that Salman Rushdie isn't right, that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a sign of a healthy democracy. Now, leading the debate are our pundits. On one side, we have Professor Vishwanathan, and on the other side, we have Sir Mark Tully. But before we go to that, let's just take a look at what sparked off this debate. The man who's adored and hated award-winning author Salman Rushdie. So our first talking point on that, are we too easily offended? Sir Mark, why don't you think so?
Well, I didn't think so because, first of all, I think this is a very tolerant country. It's tolerated me for 40-odd years, and I've said a lot of very rude things about India and about Indians sometimes.
Yes.
And I think that what Rushdie is saying is actually a load of nonsense. All that has happened is that our differences are better known because they're more widespread through the media
in
and
recent
all
years,
the rest of it. The other thing is that politics and democratic politics is based basically on taking offense. And I think that if you look at the politicians in this country, well, you might well say that they take offense too quickly, but then you could say the same thing about politicians in Britain or anywhere else. But I think if you look at the average person in this country, actually he doesn't take offense quickly enough. There are so many things happening in this country which there should be more offense taken about, and the average person does not. Lastly, I would say that on this tired old allegation about religious communalism in this country, there are, I don't know how many million Christians in this country. There is a 15% plus Muslim population in this country. There are Buddhists, there are Parsis, there is every religion known to man. And occasionally there are flare-ups. But I think what we have seen, and I think we saw this after Ayodhya, is that actually when people play communal politics, they get punished for it, and the people of India on the whole do not react to that.
So Mark Tully calls it a load of nonsense. Why is it that this side, a lot of these people, and a lot of people wrote it to us, tend to agree with what Salman Rushdie is saying?
See, I think the agreement was qualified. There's a lot of offendedness, terrible word in a literary sense, because there's a lot of offensiveness.
Yes.
So in that sense, it's a kind of reactive behaviorist response, like Pavlov's dog. Instead of, it's mouth-watering, it bites. So in that sense, I think Rushdie is right. But in a typical Rushdie way, he's right because for the wrong reasons. I love his literacy because his sociology is so illiterate. And I think, I'm going to do it in a typical Indian style. We agree so we can subvert it.
But how are you saying?
Wait, let me tell you.
Okay.
Here is a man who thinks religious fanaticism is on the rise after the decline of communism. Right?
Yes.
And second, he talks about communalism as if it was invented in the 60s. A post-Beatle generation. Communalism is as old in India as the national movement. You can go back to the Bombay communal strikes, to Tilak. You've had communal movements. But I think what I would really want to emphasize is Rushdie should have been much more careful. That literary flair makes him, actually the very fact he's literary makes him sociologically illiterate.
Okay.
So I think really what we've got to see is, now if he had said VIPs are offended, yes. Middle class are offended, especially when those middle class who want India to be a superpower, we get offended. Academicians get offended.
Do you think?
Yes. If he had done it sectorally, he would have been brilliant. But you know, Rushdie suffers from the Neupal effect. Here, I think we Indians are very nice because we like to get offended, because that's one way of paying attention to V.S. Neupal, to Rushdie, to others. My God, if we didn't pay attention to them, where would they be?
But do you think we're too thin-skinned?
Of course we are thin-skinned. We've got a lot of things to be thin-skinned about. But our problem is, it's a choice of what we object to. You see, we never object to VIPs misbehaving. But if somebody calls us a third-rate superpower, you'll object. Half of middle
I
class
think a lot
will be
of people object to VIPs as well, though.
No, but they don't articulate it.
Okay.
Okay? I think the interesting thing is the choice of the objectionable. And that's what Rushdie, for all his literariness, doesn't understand.
Okay, I think you've taken a different perspective to it. But some of these young
Sure.
people who I was talking to, I just want to get them in because they had a different reason for agreeing with Rushdie. Yes.
Sir, I wanted to say about the perception of Indians about women. We have a very fixed image about women, and anytime, whenever they want to exert their freedom as a liberal individual, they are seen as destroying their image as a genuine Indian female. And we see that easily whenever people like the women, they go out and go for work and try to adopt Western culture. We Indians get easily offended. They just think that they have a fixed role as a
Are you
home.
talking about the arts?
Yes. Yes, and plus, suppose if they go out for work at night, they have night shifts. People don't see it very in a proper positive way. They take it in a negative role, and I think that is wrong.
No, I think you made a genuine point. What he's trying to say is certain women in certain situations are seen like dirt, matter out of place. The rape cases, in a way, showed that. Because to a certain extent, you had many bureaucrats saying they shouldn't have been out of their homes after 4. Okay? But here again, I just want to point out, it's a particular category of people. Bureaucrats get offended by women who don't seem to dress properly in court.
Bureaucrats and police people.
And policemen are bureaucrats.
Okay.
I mean, I think you've got to understand, the policeman is the arch bureaucrat. It starts with the FIR and ends with your death certificate.
Now,